So there's a lot in the Preston Amendment about D, E and I, so diversity, equity, inclusion. And as part of this video today, I want to talk a bit more about how you as a leader can really leverage this concept of diversity and inclusion to be more effective. Now, I know that working with leaders a lot, one of the areas that often they need to work on is as they become more senior, they often get responsibility for much, much larger teams, and that inevitably leads them to lead, obviously, across geographies and countries, and therefore you're exposed much more to sort of cross cultures. So inevitably, as a senior leader in any organisation, cross-cultural awareness becomes really, really important because you're exposed to difference, and diversity in itself doesn't make a business more effective. In fact, there's a lot of research suggests diversity on its own actually makes teams less effective, because diversity can often lead to conflict because we have differences in our team. We can have cultural misunderstandings, issues with communication. So diversity in itself doesn't necessarily help you, but diversity with inclusion, well, that's a different matter. And all the research would suggest that in teams where there's diversity and inclusion, and for inclusion you really need psychological safety, so where you've got that safe environment where people feel they can bring their full self to work, and they can bring their difference, and that is included in some way, then those teams will typically outperform other teams, and all the research suggests that. Now, sounds great, but it's very difficult to do because our human sort of biases, our cognitive biases, means that we tend to gravitate to people like us, and we like people who are like us, and we tend to have a different opinion around people who are different to us. So if people are like us, what we'll call the in-group, then we tend to see them as individuals. We notice individual characteristics, we'll learn their names, we'll be bothered to know things about them. But the out-group, if people are in an out-group, we tend to put them all together, and we tend to apply then sort of stereotypes, and we may not notice so much about individual differences. So there's a real challenge as you navigate cultural diversity. So how do you find ways to work against effectively our evolutionary programming? Our evolutionary program has told us that what is same is safe. Army helicopter. What's same is safe and what different is danger. So this is just human nature, and we have to work very hard in teams and in cross-cultural environments to work against that. So leaders often need help in figuring those things out. And often leaders don't always accept the fact that they are effectively struggling with this. But all the research, again, that I'm aware of suggests that if you look at things like the Harvard implicit association test, we all carry some level of cognitive biases, whether you call that a level of racism or general stereotypes. It exists in all of us because it's part of human nature. But that doesn't mean we can't work against our nature by effectively instructing ourselves to be fair. And that really starts with this concept then of raising our awareness around where might these cognitive biases play out. So one activity I often recommend managers to do, maybe teams to do. So let's say you're approaching doing like a big talent or performance review, and there's a leadership team and they're about to do some kind of review of their organisation. I always think there's a good exercise that that often helps, which is ask the leaders of that team to say, okay, looking at the team you're about to appraise or the talent you're about to look at, why don't you rank those people from top to bottom in terms of performance? So just rank them, and there's a conversation to say, okay, well, Mary's at number one, and there's Bob, and there's Sajid, and they go down the list, and there's a whole list of people, and they rank them from top to bottom. And generally that's not too difficult. Sometimes an argument about who's the best, and sometimes an argument about who's the worst, but typically most teams can figure out roughly ranking top to bottom performers. So you do that list first, and you put that to a side, maybe wait half an hour, do something else, and say, okay, now do a list, same people, but this time rank them of how much you like them. How much do you actually get on with them? And that's always a little bit more difficult, makes people feel a bit more uncomfortable. But again, if you sort of push people and you sort of facilitate it, they'll make a list, say, yeah, well, I really like Mary, yeah, I really get on with her, yeah, we're very similar. Actually went to the same school, actually. Yeah, I like John, yeah, he's great, yeah, he plays golf like I play golf. You go down the list and you get a list of people, top to bottom, how much you like them. And then you leave it for maybe half an hour or maybe another day. Then you say, okay, now we're going to do a third list. I want you to write a list of how much they're like you. So are they male? Are they female? What ethnicity are they? What religion are they? And you make that list. And then you bring the team together and you compare those three lists. So the highest performers, the people that you most like, people are most like you, guess what starts to emerge? Oh my goodness, the people who are the highest performers are the people who we like the most and are generally most similar to us. What does that tell us? It tells us that performance isn't objective, it is subjective. We apply a cognitive lens, a bias. The in-group, out-group biases start to frame what we think of as being performance. And maybe if we like someone, maybe we spend more time with them and maybe they get more development. Or if we like someone and they like us, we maybe trust them more, maybe they get the more difficult assignments and then therefore they learn more and then they get better quicker. So it's a really sort of insidious, process, but it is our biological programming. If you become aware of that, then you can start to take active steps to say, right, how do we become more fair in the choices we make, but also the opportunities we give people. And if we've got someone who isn't a high performer and we don't really like them and they're not like us, maybe we need to start spending time with those people, because we know the more time you spend with people, the more you realise they're just like you. There's a great quote from Carl Jung which said, "We are like no one, you are like someone, you're like everyone." So yes, we're all individuals. Yes, we're all part of these in-groups or these out-groups, and we're also all human beings. So I would encourage leaders to do that exercise, to think very carefully about how they can focus more of their energy on those people who may be a bit more disenfranchised than other people in their teams. I hope that helps.